Hello everyone and welcome to another Stargate lore video. Remember when I said this in the Gadmir video? They will have their own lore episode in the future. Well, today I make good on that promise, as today we are looking at the Enkarans.
How can we ever repay them?
By not boring them with long speeches, Hedrazar.
History. The Enkarans are a humanoid race native to the world Enkara. Supposedly they had no Stargate, though this did not stop the Goa'uld from finding them. Though the Goa'uld never conquered the world, they did attack, taking some of its inhabitants away as slaves. What one can only assume to be thousands of years later, these slaves escaped. But the Enkarans need a very specific type of environment to be able to live. The world they escaped to didn't have the right conditions, some starting to go blind, and in general they were threatened with dying off. Stargate Command found them and offered to help, eventually finding a world with the right environmental conditions for them. But only a few weeks after the Enkarans moved to the world, an issue arose. You can watch my Gadmir video for more details, but the long and short of it was a terraforming spaceship that belonged to the, at that time, extinct race known as the Gadmir had come to terraform the world in order to rebirth the Gadmir. The new environment being made by the terraformer could not sustain carbon-based life, and because the process had started on the planet, it had to be finished there due to a lack of material from the terraformer. Either the Enkarans had to leave, which may result in their death if no new world could be found, so the Gadmir could live, or the Enkarans could stay, but the Gadmir would be rendered extinct forever. In the end, the situation was resolved when it was discovered the terraformer had found the original Enkaran homeworld in its search through the stars. An offer was made to the Enkarans. They give up their claim to the planet, and the terraformer would return them to their homeworld. Since Enkara had no Stargate, it was believed that they would never be seen again by the SGC. However, 2 years after the Enkarans returned home, they dialed the SGC. As it turns out, Enkara did have a Stargate in its early history, but it was buried after the first Goa'uld invasion. This did not stop Ra from launching more raids against the planet, which is a little weird. You would think the Enkarans' high-maintenance biological needs would make them more trouble than they were worth as slaves. But then again, I wasn't the ruler of a galactic empire, so what do I know? Anyway, while the raids did eventually stop, it left a deep impact on Enkaran history. Old Enkarans, the ones on their homeworld, developed a deep mistrust of all aliens. They don't seem to direct this mistrust towards the Enkarans who arrived in the terraformer, but towards any and all other aliens. The new Enkarans, the ones who interacted with SG-1, managed to convince the Enkaran Council to dig up the gate and make contact with the SGC. Since then, the new Enkarans have tried to push for more contact between Earth and Enkara, such as trade and a list of all safe gate addresses. However, most of the old Enkarans would rather shut down the gate, with the new Enkaran unofficial ambassador Tadikaki, I think that's how you say it, having to keep pulling SGC and Phoenix Alliance members into meeting with the Enkaran officials to assuage them of their fears. However, with the amount of time, resources, and money being spent on the Enkarans, the Oversight Committee has begun to question what the point of continuing talks is. Biology. The Enkarans may look human, but it is important to note they evolved on their own homeworld separate from humanity. The most distinct feature showing this is their yellow eyes. However, under the surface, the biggest difference is that the Enkarans are way more sensitive to UV radiation than humans are, and require a very dense ozone layer in order to survive. Well, more than humans need one. Without one, and being exposed to too much UV radiation will cause an Enkaran to go blind, and eventually death. Society. Now, we don't know much about the society of the Enkarans. For the new Enkarans, they had an agricultural society, being ruled over by village leaders, which I can only assume is chosen by the eldest in the community. That would be the end of this section, but the introduction of the old Enkarans in the new RPG book has given us some more details. The old Enkaran society is very different from the new ones. As I said, the old Enkarans are way more xenophobic due to the raids by the Goa'uld, even if the raids aren't in recent memory. This xenophobia is so deep that they even threaten the SGC and Phoenix site that they will revoke the access codes to their Stargate if they ever have a reason to distrust them. And it should be noted They never said they would warn them if the access codes got revoked or not. While this xenophobia is probably a big point of contention between the two Enkaran groups, there is a bigger issue. The old Enkarans are struggling to incorporate the new Enkarans into their society, as the old Enkarans are way more technologically advanced than the new Enkarans, so the agricultural skills the new Enkarans have is pretty much useless to the old Enkarans. The Enkaran government proposed retraining the new Enkarans with skills more useful in their society, and while some new Enkarans have taken the offer, others feel their culture is being eliminated rather than the two cultures being merged together. Technology. Technologically, the new Enkarans are, well...
Let's just say that this about sums it up, huh?
The old Enkarans, in contrast, have become far more advanced, even beyond what Earth had around the year 2002. Though not so advanced that we wouldn't be able to figure out what the technology was. For example, they had flying cars.
I was promised flying cars.
But they were still just cars. The only two exceptions to this was their medicine and planetary defense, which was on par with anything the Goa'uld have. So far, the hope of gaining access to the medical and planetary defense technology has been the only thing keeping the Oversight Committee from pulling out of talks with the Enkaran government. Just some other tech they have is an energy barrier on their gate like an iris, automation that takes care of most of their farming, and the tech to build houses really quickly. Relations with other races. So you can probably guess that the new Enkarans seem to have good relations with others, at least with Earth and the Phoenix Alliance. In general, they are more open to aliens due to the help they received in getting home. As for the old Enkarans, again, as you can probably guess, they have poor relations due to their mistrust of aliens. As I said, they all but threatened to revoke the codes to the iris at the first sign of distrust, and due to the constant meetings needing to reassure the Enkaran government that the Tari are honest allies, has made some wonder what the point of this is. Relations between the two groups aren't all that well either. Sure, the old Enkarans don't seem to harbor any ill will towards their cousins, but with the xenophobia against the SGC and Phoenix site, and the lack of trying to meld the two cultures together, could lead to some dark tides in the future. Fun facts. The Enkarans were first mentioned in Season 4, Episode 7, Watergate, but were not seen for another 2 episodes. Second is that the ending of the episode they were properly introduced in, Scorched Earth, originally had a very different ending. Originally, it was going to end with Lotan destroying or stopping the seed ship, resulting in the Gadmir being wiped out. If this had been the route they took, it means not only would we never see the Gadmir again, but also that the Enkarans would never ever return to their original homeworld. And that was the Enkarans. Like with the Gadmir, there's really not much to say about them since they only appear in one episode, but I really like what the RPG book did with them. I read the reason they changed the original ending of the episode was because they didn't want to end on such a dour note. But the way they did end it ends it essentially with a almost too happy ending. But thanks to this RPG book, we know that, well, when the Enkarans returned home, not all was well in paradise. And that does make sense. Imagine if you took, say, 1,000 Romans at the height of the Roman Empire and just plopped them down into modern-day Italy. There would be some major differences between the two groups. But what do you all think? Do you like the Enkarans? Or do you dislike the Enkarans? Do you like what the RPG book did with introducing the old Enkarans? Would you like to see the old Enkarans in a future Stargate story? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, leave a like and subscribe. And remember...
So, what shall we do now?